What's up guys, Show 540 here with another poker content educational video. Today, using the Share My Pair app, we've constructed a hand that we pulled off of a cards forum, and we're going to be breaking down the hand as it goes through. The original poster wanted to know how they should have played this hand out. I'm just going to break it down and give you my kind of thought process on the whole thing, and then we will go from there. If you like this video, if it helps, please click that like and subscribe button. If you have a hand that you want me to go over, kind of break it down, give you my thought process on, you can shoot me an email of your hand. There's an email description in the link. Just shoot it over to me. And if you've got a tracker program like Hold'em Manager or Poker Tracker, something like that, just send it over to me in the exported form. We'll load it up. I'll do a video on it, give you my analysis on the hand. No further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one. I have the screen cropped because initially, when I made the hand, kind of left the villain's whole cards exposed. So for that purpose, we're going to leave it cropped. We will show you at the end how things panned out and what went on with the villain's cards. So we have King King under the gun +3 or +2, I'm sorry, and or we're in the low jack in this spot. We incline to raise. I would have gone a little bit bigger. 2.5 is fine here, so 150. We get the call from the button. We're heads up. Flop comes down queen high. This is a good flop. We should be c-betting this quite often. I don't like the flop sizing as much. When we bet 270 on the flop, I don't think we're getting called by much except a queen. I guess if somebody slow played jacks or tens I can see flatting, but we're talking about the buttons range. He's never flatting jacks there. Tens is probably re-raising as well. So, I don't see a lot of those hands in his range. It's just really polarizing, It's a pretty dry board, and it's one of those spots where we bet so big, we're only getting called by a queen. And we want to keep some value hands, in the pot. We want to give like ace-10, ace-jack, ace-king. We want to give all those hands a chance to float the flop. So for that matter, the pot was 360. I would probably incline to go like 125 or 135 on the flop, like a third pot sizing bet. Keeping all those hands in and not just targeting like queens only, because that's the only thing that's going to call a bigger bet here. Like I said, jacks would probably call a bigger bet, but it's going to be really hard for him to have jacks the way he played this hand. So we go to the turns, a queen of diamonds. Well, now things are really dicey, right? We bet 225, we get called. Things are super dicey. The sizing, number one, is terrible. We're betting less than a quarter pot here. And actually, I'm sorry, we are betting dead on quarter pot here. Into a pot of 900k, we are betting, or 900k, 900, we are betting quarter pot. And I just don't know why we would downsize our bet. We're still beating everything except queen X hands. And so I think if we're going to polarize a queen in this spot, since we went so big on the flop, we would bet big here as well. And I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of 625 to 675. And when we do get called, we're usually in deep shit, because only something as strong as a flop set or a turned, trips is going to be able to call a bet that large. The queen is an interesting card in a sense that, that being that two queens are on the board, it makes it that much less likely that our opponent actually has a queen in his hand. But then again, we did bet large on the flop. And what would our opponent call us with on the flop that he would not call us with on the turn, right? And it's pretty polarizing. So with our large flop bet, I think I like the check call here a whole lot better. It does leave some bluffs in for our opponent, and our opponent's also never checking back a queen in this spot. So I think we can take a turn off and evaluate rivers at that point. But as far as it being played out, like right now, I hate this sizing. If we're gonna bet and bet here for value, then I like the bigger sizing. And when we do get called, then I guess we can like check call rivers, because effectively then we're turning kings into a bluff catcher. Just because if we bet big here, if we do bet and we bet big here, we're only getting called by like a queen, pocket deuces, pocket threes, something like that. We're only getting called by those hands, made hands. And yeah, so it's just a pretty dicey turn. Anyway, we bet quarter pot. We go to this river. Comes a 5 of hearts. We bet again. 250. We get raised. And then it's a really, really ugly spot. The OP decides to go ahead and call this one off. For me, I think I would just snap fold this river. Yeah, it sucks because we do have kings here, right? But our opponent called the flop bet, which was pretty large. And then he called our bet on the turn, right? So now the river comes a blank. And even though our turn bet was fairly small, he did call us. And now the river comes 5 of hearts, which is a blank. Like the backdoor diamonds don't get there. Runner spades, runner clubs, none of that stuff gets there. And we get check raised when we bet extremely small again. Well, this is like indicative of the nuts. Like 9 times out of 10, we are always running into a queen at the very least, or a full house, right? Because nobody's bluffing this river. It's just, the board is so dry, nothing makes sense. It's one of those things where like nothing but the nuts should be betting this river. Now we reveal our opponent had ace-4 offsuit. This is super weird, right? Like, he binks the gutter to the straight on the river. And the problem with that and how he even gets there in the first place is, I mean, sure, some people are going to float that flop, I guess, with ace high and a gutter. Like 9 times out of 10, people that have ace-4 in that spot are going to fold, especially to a big bet, right? Again, this is also why if we're going to bet the turn that we use a really large sizing. If we bet like 650 or 675 on the turn instead of 225 after he called 270, if we bet like 650 or 675 on the queen, he's probably ditching ace-4. I mean, it's very strong. We're only getting called by a queen on that turn. So if we're going to do that and look to call off like blank rivers like this when we get check raised, then we may as well just barrel big on the turn. And if we get called, we can look to give up rivers because our opponent's never betting or raising a hand on the river that we're beating. Effectively, our kings are bluff catchers at that point because we're not beating any queens. Any flopped sets turned into a full house, on the turn. And, the 5 is relatively a blank. I mean, it's just, weird at this point that, ace-4 even shows up here. More often than not, we're just going to run into trips or we're going to run into a full house, things of that nature, which we lose to anyhow. So, yeah, we should be folding this river a ton of the time. The fact that we ran into some weird straight here, is just strange as it is. But at the end of the day, our opponent was, check raising us on the river with a pretty nutted hand, right? Like, we still can't win this hand. But this is usually going to be a queen or a full house. So I hope this breakdown makes sense. I hope that the turn situation makes sense. And yeah, if we downplay the turn, we check it back, and then he decides to lead river, maybe we don't lose this much of our stack. Yeah, sure, we still lose because we're going to call off the 5 on the river, but, with the pot being like 1,300, if our opponent decides to bet, 800 or so, well, we didn't call off, 16 or 1700 there, on the river. So we lose a lot less, and at that point, we just kind of pick up the pieces and move on, right? Because he got there with some kind of weird ass gutter. But anyway, yeah, man, like I was saying, I hope this makes sense. I hope the turn situation makes sense, and I hope you guys improve your game. I hope this video helps, and yeah, appreciate you guys stopping by. Appreciate your time. Again, if you like the video, if it helps you out, leave that like and subscribe. We will be doing more content in the future. Take care. We'll see you guys out at the tables.